Nelson Mandela, who led the emancipation of South Africa from white minority rule and served as the country's first black president, has passed away at the age of 95. The New York Times had an excellent, something like 7, 8, or 9 page obituary about Nelson Mandela. I'll just read a little bit from it. Mr. Mandela ultimately died at his home at 8:50 p.m. local time and will be buried according to his wishes in the village of Kunu, where he grew up. Mr. Mandela's quest for freedom took him from the court of tribal loyalty to the Liberation Underground to a prison rock quarry to the presidential suite of Africa's richest country. And then, when his first term of office was up, unlike so many of the successful revolutionaries he regarded as kindred spirits, he declined a second term and cheerfully handed over power to an elected successor, the country still gnawed by crime, poverty, corruption, and disease, but a democracy, respected in the world and remarkably at peace. The question most often asked about Nelson Mandela was how, after whites had systematically humiliated his people, tortured and murdered many of his friends, and cast him into prison for 27 years, how could he be so evidently free of spite? The government he formed when he finally won the chance was an improbable fusion of races and beliefs, including many of his former oppressors. When he became president, he invited one of his white prison wardens to the inauguration. Mr. Mandela overcame a personal mistrust bordering on loathing to share both power and a Nobel Peace Prize with the white president who preceded him, F.W. de Klerk. When the question was put to Mr. Mandela in an interview for his obituary in 2007, after some barbarous torment, how do you keep hatred in check? His answer was almost dismissive. Hating clouds the mind. It gets in the way of strategy. Leaders cannot afford to hate. Now, in the wake of his passing, Lewis, there have been a number of obituaries like that in the New York Times, and there have also been some, mostly right-wing groups and individuals, calling attention to Nelson Mandela's friendships or positive statements about individuals that they don't like or that they think are anti-American or communist, etc. And, I'm just reminded that it's hard to think of anyone who doesn't have associations with some people, someone in their family, some friends, some public figures who haven't said things you disagree with at some point or have associations you don't like. And that right now seems to be becoming somewhat of a distraction. Fortunately, not too much, Lewis, as we kind of remember the incredible accomplishments that Nelson Mandela had, in spite of maybe at some point saying something nice about Fidel Castro, which seems increasingly irrelevant right now.
Yeah, it's an incredible life. I have a tremendous amount of respect for anyone who is able to, I guess, maybe suppress or manage emotion and irrational emotion in such a way. I think everybody can struggle with that. Me personally, I certainly have, and it's mind blowing his ability to do that.
It is incredible. And now, as we see the services and the commemoration events and so much that's going on, hopefully now there will be a new generation of people who learn about Nelson Mandela. Because so often, Lewis, when a public figure dies years after when they were kind of in their most active period, you have a generation that may know the name, but may not really know anything about the person or their accomplishments. So I think that's hopefully the positive aspect of what's going on now.
Right, and he had been ill for some time,
Yeah.
so the fact that he's not suffering is good. And of course, now we're going to see X number of movies, documentaries, books, you name it. It's all going to hit us. So I think a lot of people will have that opportunity.